Welcome to All Fired Up Radio. When the mainstream media leaves you scratching your head, join us for Words Matter. Now your host, Mary Weeks.
Welcome to Words Matter on All Fired Up Radio. I'm your host, Mary Weeks, live from Dallas, Texas. We have George producing tonight from the Dallas area as well. You know, George, you're much more of a co-host than just a producer, don't you?
Well, I guess I do butt my 2 cents in every now and then, don't I?
That's cool. 2 cents are good.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. And before I get all wrapped up in the news and forget, to everyone, happy 4th of July. And happy birthday, 236 years, I think, to our Declaration of Independence.
Absolutely. Did not forget.
No, don't want to forget that one.
Or we shouldn't forget, I should say.
No, and tomorrow I'll be all over it, but I won't be able to say it to everybody tomorrow. So.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely be having my time, but it does seem that a lot of people have gotten complacent and have forgotten the freedoms and why we're here and what it took for us to get here.
The reasons behind it. One of the things, and I've always kind of done it since the kids were little, was to just quiz the kids on what, it's Easter. Do you know what we're celebrating? For everything. So, I love when these holidays come up, and now they're older. They're 13 and 17. So now when I ask, we get into some deep political discussion sometimes. So it's great. To me, it's just another reason to remember.
Yeah. Well, before I let you unleash on everybody here, I would be remiss if we did not plug something that Miss B's been working on. Mrs., Miss, and Teen Conservative U.S. Pageant is going to be here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area this weekend. It's going to be held at the Renaissance Hotel in Richardson. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's on 75, is that not?
Yeah, it's right on the highway.
I thought that was. So if anybody's in the area and would like to go, it's, of course, the beautiful conservative women that we have out there. And they will be out there having a great contest. Children under 5 are free. Price is $20 per person. And I hope everybody I'm sure everybody will have a great time. How could you not have a great time being in a room with a bunch of gorgeous conservative women, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
All righty, guys. Well, I will let you get loose here because I know that you've got a lot to talk about. It has not been quiet.
Oh, man, it's been busy. What a week in the news, I'll tell you. We've got the ObamaCare ruling, and then there was an immigration ruling, too, from the Supreme Court, and then, of course, Eric Holder's contempt charge. And I don't know about everyone else, but, this is just all I've been soaking in since last Thursday, and these things have been hashed and rehashed so much already. I almost hate to focus on it. But we're going to look more – I'm sorry, what?
It sure has been analyzed to death on TV, hasn't it?
Oh, my gosh. And, and it's – you see both sides as far as I see conservatives who are totally hating on Justice Roberts right now, and I see conservatives who are totally, I guess maybe they're looking for the silver lining to the whole thing, but I think there is one. But there, even on both sides, you're getting such varied opinions about the whole thing.
I know it's both sides they think he's a genius for what he did, or they think he's an idiot for what he did.
Oh, yeah, he's a traitor, a backstabbing traitor. I've seen quite a bit of that. Oh, no. Well, so we'll start with Eric Holder on his contempt charge. Thursday, the House of Representatives voted to hold him in contempt. Now, we have a clip of his statement about the vote. So let's go ahead and listen to what he has to say about it after the vote.
I had hoped that congressional leaders would be good faith partners in this work, and some were. Others, however, have devoted their time and their attention to making reckless charges, unsupported by fact, and to advancing truly absurd conspiracy theories. Unfortunately, these same members of Congress were nowhere to be found when the Justice Department and others invited them to help look for real solutions to the terrible problem of violence on both sides of our southwest border. That's tragic, and it is also irresponsible. The problem of drugs and weapons trafficking across this border is a real and significant public safety threat, and it deserves the attention of every leader in Washington. In the face of these and other challenges, the Justice Department has continued to move forward in fulfilling its critical law enforcement responsibilities, whether it is with regard to prosecuting financial and health care fraud, achieving a record mortgage settlement, taking aggressive action in protecting the most vulnerable among us, or challenging proposed voting changes and redistricting maps that would potentially disenfranchise millions of voters. This Department of Justice has not been afraid to act, nor have I been. Now, some of these enforcement decisions were not politically popular and help to explain the actions that were taken today by the House. As Attorney General, I do not look to that which is politically expedient. On behalf of the American people who I am privileged to serve, I seek justice. In recent weeks, the Justice Department secured its 7th conviction in the most serious terrorist plot our nation has faced since 9/11. And just 2 days ago, the department awarded more than $100 million in grants to save or to create law enforcement jobs, including more than 600 jobs for recent veterans. This is the kind of work that leaders in Washington should be striving together to advance. At a time when so many Americans are in need of our help, I refuse to be deterred from it, and I will not let election year politics and gamesmanship stand in the way of continued progress. Today's vote may make for good political theater in the minds of some, but it is at base both a crass effort and a grave disservice to the American people. They expect and they deserve far more. As a result of the action taken today by the House, an unnecessary court conflict will ensue. My efforts to resolve this matter, short of such a battle, were rebuffed by Congressman Issa and by his supporters. It's clear that they were not interested in bringing an end to this dispute or even obtaining the information they say they wanted. Ultimately, their goal was the vote that, with the help of special interests, they now have engineered. Whatever the path that this matter will now follow, it will not distract me or the men and women of the United States Department of Justice from the important tasks that are our responsibility. A great deal of work for the American people remains to be done. I'm going to be getting back to it. I suggest that those who orchestrated today's vote do the same.
Get back to work. Nothing to see here. Oh, my gosh. This guy, I am going to pick him apart, that whole little thing.
Look at my left hand. Don't look at the right.
Oh, my gosh. This guy is just unbelievable.
You know, one thing I just caught on that thing, no wonder Obama's got his little death squad of drones now. Did you catch where he said he's all proud about they just had their 7th conviction of a terrorist?
Yeah.
7 convictions in 3 years? You've got to be kidding me. That's the
I know,
best
we've
you
had
could
quite
do.
a few attempts in the last 3 years, too.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's the best you can brag on. 7. Well, what do you expect? You couldn't convict Roger Clemens for lying. How hard was that? They couldn't convict John Edwards of what he did. I mean, anybody could have convicted John Edwards just going in there and laying down the foundation of what he did while his wife was alive, and the jury would have been so ticked off anybody would have convicted him. And they still couldn't get it done.
Maybe that's the problem. We don't have juries trying these things. We have judges hearing them.
I don't know. All I know is the DOJ is not doing a good job.
Oh, they're awful. They are awful. This guy is it's just incredible that he gets away with this stuff. And, you know, when I first heard that audio clip, I wasn't that, I don't know, it just didn't really make me mad. But I highly recommend reading your news and looking things up and reading about them, because you really do take it in so much better. And well, maybe it's just a certain thing. Some people, I take it in so much better when I read it. And as I read through the transcript of his statements, it just made me mad. I got so pissed I couldn't believe it. So let's go through line by line. He started and he said, today's vote is the regrettable culmination of what became a misguided and politically motivated investigation during an election year. Now, first, let's remember that this has been going on for much longer than this election year. Eric Holder has been dragging his feet and covering his ass and Obama's ass for well over a year. If this is just an election year stunt, then why did the death of Brian Terry kick off the outcry for action from the people? I mean, there is a Brian Terry Foundation right now making statements about all these things going on. And the reason that foundation exists is because people were outraged to find out that we've been doing this, that we've been selling weapons to drug cartels. If this is just a political stunt by Republicans, then why did it begin with Eric Holder's own ATF agents blowing the whistle? I mean, did Darrell Issa really go put these people up to it? Of course not. It's ridiculous. This hasn't been conjured out of nothing. It's not like someone broke into the DNC and rifled through some papers here. I mean, man, I can't believe the outrage, the total outcry by the people over Watergate during the Nixon years. But, you know, the press, they just really don't care about this one. They've blown it off, most of them. CBS had some really good coverage of it, but most of them have pretty much blown it off. It hasn't been in the headlines of the news much at all, even through all these hearings and the constant questioning and back and forth between Holder and Issa as they've tried to investigate this. But I digress. Let's get back to Eric Holder's statements. He said, by advancing it over the past year and a half, Congressman Issa and others have focused on politics over public safety. Instead of trying to correct the problems that led to a series of flawed law enforcement operations, and instead of helping us find ways to better protect the brave law enforcement agents like Agent Brian Terry who keep us safe, they've led us to this unnecessary and unwarranted outcome. If we're really honest here, Eric Holder isn't looking to protect the brave law enforcement agents like Brian Terry who keep us safe. If he was, he would have ended Fast and Furious the first time his stinking guns started coming back to us in crimes. That happened 2 months after they started selling them by the thousands to drug cartels. But the truth is, Eric Holder doesn't give a crap about Brian Terry or his other agents. Thank God Congressman Issa focused on ending the bad policy that has been at the root of the deaths of 2 Americans and hundreds of Mexican citizens. I just can't believe the balls on this man that he has the nerve to think selling thousands of guns to drug cartels, which is the epitome of politics over safety, in any way protects our law enforcement agents or the American people. But I digress again. He goes on to say, we learned that the flawed tactics used in this operation began in the previous administration, but I made sure that they ended under this one. Liar. Eric Holder, you lie. Such a liar. Oh, my gosh. The previous administration's gun-walking program ended in 2007, 2 years before Eric Holder ever took over the Department of Injustice. He just lied through his lying teeth And the media let him get away with that. I do not accept those lies. You should not accept those lies, America. He started this program despite the history of the previous administration's gun-walking programs. It is unbelievable that he tried to pass this off on it's Bush's fault. This guy is as bad as Obama. Oh, my gosh, it's Bush's fault. This disgusting political manipulator started a program that was even worse than anything that happened under Bush's reign.
I mean, the programs aren't close to being the same. At least the program that started under Bush, at least they had cooperation with the government from Mexico, and they also had those LoJacks, and they had those devices on them that could track them. I mean, these guys just let them walk across the border and could care less.
Oh, and they have emails of people in the ATF discussing how they're going to use the gun walking, Fast and Furious, in order to get regulations passed for gun dealers. They had a political motive from the beginning. I mean, otherwise, it made absolutely no sense. Without that political motive, it makes no sense. Why would anybody just sell guns and just wait until they find them at crime scenes? It was just the most ridiculous plan ever, and the only explanation that makes any sense whatsoever for it is that it was politically motivated to enact policy for gun regulations.
Exactly.
Oh, but we'll get to that because, to him that's all just conspiracy theories. But where were we then? He gives us some yada yada about he's fixed the problems that he claimed, he didn't even know existed, and how he made sure that agents and prosecutors around the country know that such tactics must never be used again. And then he says, now, let me be very clear. That was my response to Operation Fast and Furious, and any suggestion to the contrary is simply not consistent with the facts. And he says he fixed the problems. Now, see, let me be very clear here, Mr. Holder. Your response to Operation Fast and Furious, your many lies about who knew what and when, your multiple counts of perjury before Congress, and your treatment of the honest whistleblowers within your own department, none of that is simply not consistent with fact. Now, I like how he throws these things out here, and this to me is just, I get this in liberal arguments all the time. They make a statement and say, that's just not consistent with the facts, and there's really nothing to back that up. But he's being perfectly clear, so we should listen, I guess. I don't buy it. I don't buy anything this man says. He continued and said, I had hoped that congressional leaders would be good faith partners in this work, and some were. Others, however, have devoted their time and attention to making reckless charges unsupported by fact and to advancing truly absurd conspiracy theories. Here we go. When the people question you and your facts don't add up, pull out the accusations of conspiracy theories. Every time we ask questions and they don't have the answers, or the answers make absolutely no sense and we keep questioning, they tell us we're just conspiracy theorists. You just aren't accepting the truth. That's the problem.
Always a right-wing conspiracy.
Always. Always. Never mind that every charge ISA has made at this disgusting excuse for an attorney general has been supported by fact. Emails within the ATF proving the political goals of their disgusting program, and their response to the evidence of these political manipulations within our law enforcement agencies is what's truly absurd.
It's that most famous of all responses.
I don't know. Now he's just going to hide behind executive privilege.
Yeah, he doesn't have to say I don't know anymore.
Oh, but that's pretty much what. And what's funny is he's had to retract a few of those I don't knows along the way.
Yeah, in fact, what was it 2 weeks ago? He had to retract one before the contempt vote.
They keep proving that he really did know and that it was all very deliberate.
Absolutely.
Outrageous. All right. So then he says, unfortunately, no, wait, we read that, didn't we? No, this is right. Unfortunately, these same members of Congress were nowhere to be found when the Justice Department and others invited them to help look for real solutions to the terrible problem of violence on both sides of our southwest border. I don't know what they were looking for help for. I don't know what they asked for help for. It's ironic because if there's anything that the American people have been complaining about, it's that nothing has been done by our Justice Department about violence along our southwest border.
I was going to say, I seem to recall lots of people, lots of special governors, like here in Texas, Governor Perry, and in Arizona, Kenneth Brewer, screaming that they need help on the border, and they get, they just get blind ear, or deaf ear, I should say, just turned at them. These guys, and Perry is spending a lot of our money out of our state budget to do what he can do, and he can only do so much.
Yeah.
It's not the state's job to have an army or anything. He can only do but so much. And, that's money that could be going for education or something in our state where that's being taken away from the citizens.
No, we have plenty of budget shortfalls in this state, I can tell you.
Yeah.
A lot of it has to do with mandates from the federal government to take care of things that they aren't taking care of along the lines of immigration specifically.
Yep.
Well, he continued, and he said he was talking about Congress and how they won't help him, and he said that's tragic and it's also irresponsible. The problem of drugs and weapons trafficking across this border is a real and significant public safety threat, and it deserves the attention of every leader in Washington. I agree with that. But notice what he does here. He's actually accusing Congress of not helping him look for solutions to the terrible problems he created by selling guns to drug cartels. It's just even more evidence that the goal of Fast and Furious was never about arresting illegal arms dealers. He just told us in his own words. It's always been about getting Congress to help look for solutions to the terrible problem of violence. Never mind that Eric Holder is creating it.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. And then in the face, he says, in the face of these and other challenges, the Justice Department has continued to move forward in fulfilling its critical law enforcement responsibilities. So what's important to Eric Holder? What does he see as the Department of Injustice's critical law enforcement responsibilities? He lists prosecuting financial and health care fraud, achieving a record mortgage settlement, taking aggressive action in protecting the most vulnerable among us, or challenging proposed voting changes and redistricting maps. Who are these most vulnerable among us? I mean, is he now fighting for aborted children or something? I just don't get that. But, okay. Obviously, the Department of Injustice does not think prosecuting cases of voter fraud is in its realm of justice. Eric Holder's Department of Injustice does not see prosecuting voter intimidation cases as one of his critical law enforcement responsibilities. He seems to think that American citizens need protection from their own representative state governments, from our own referendum votes. He has important politically motivated lawsuits to file. He has to fight the stupid American people who don't want his master's health care, or who want to ensure that only American citizens decide our elections, or who are fighting the violence of unsecured borders created by the weapons he sold to foreign criminals. I don't care how often these morons in this administration claim that it's Bush's fault. The buck stops with Barack Hussein Obama. Do not let him pass that buck again. We can't let him get away with it. The man is responsible, whether he wants to admit it or not. But I digress again. Eric Holder says now, some of these enforcement decisions were not politically popular and helped to explain the actions that were taken today by the House. So he's doing things that are politically unpopular, and that's the only reason that the House is going after him right now. Oh, yeah, right. Eric Holder has been using the Department of Injustice to subvert the representation of we the people. He has been picking and choosing which laws to enforce and which ones to ignore. And that is not his job. He is a worthless excuse for an attorney general. His job is not to be the henchman of the dictator in the presidency. His stinking job, which he fails to do from the beginning of his term, is to enforce the law. Eric Holder is a failed bit, a hack. He is a fascist thug. But I digress. He continues and says, as Attorney General, I do not look to do that which is politically expedient. On behalf of the American people who I am privileged to serve, I seek justice. Outright lie. Eric Holder does not know what justice is. He is nothing but a political hack. He's done nothing in his position except make politically expedient decisions. They haven't been on behalf of the American people. Oh, no, to Eric Holder, justice simply means facilitating whatever the dictator in the White House dictates. I want this guy to resign so badly. He continues and says, in recent weeks, the Justice Department secured its 7th conviction in the most serious terrorist plot our nation has faced since 9/11. What is that nonsense? See, we're fighting terrorists, and that's all that matters. We're protecting you from terrorism, so pay no attention to anything else we do that subverts your representation or your safety. Man, I hope we don't let this nonsense work. George had a really good point about that. 7 convictions in 3.5 years? Is that a lot?
I don't know what court that works, but it doesn't work in my court. I mean, how many hundreds? Actually, hundreds. Forget hundreds. How many thousands of federal attorneys do we have out there? And you're bragging about 7 convictions?
Man, they're so busy, though. They have to file suit against Arizona and Texas, and they have a lot of important Obama legislation to try and protect from us.
Yeah. Well, I guess they need to do something because what they're doing isn't working.
Oh, no, it isn't justice. That is for sure. It is not justice.
Not for the American people, anyway.
No. Well, or to the Mexican people, for that matter. Now, he goes on to say, and just 2 days ago, the department awarded more than $100 million in grants to save or create law enforcement jobs, including more than 600 jobs for recent veterans. When I read that, all I could think was great. Just what we need. More armed henchmen for the fascist pig Eric Holder to use against the American people as he subverts our representation and plays politics with our lives. That's what Fast and Furious was. It was this jerk playing with your life for his political agenda. What, are you too stupid to know that arming drug cartels protects you? Don't you see that stricter regulations on legal gun dealers are for your own good, and if a few hundred people had to die so we could make that happen, hey, so what? That's okay as long as Eric Holder's ATF gets their Second Amendment violating regulations enacted. Who cares? It's only a few hundred dead people.
Another $100 million we'll be reading about in the future that failed on some kind of a project.
Yeah, wait till all the lawsuits start.
Yeah.
We'll be paying out forever. Oh, great. So he continues and he says, this is the kind of work that leaders in Washington should be striving together to advance. At a time when so many Americans are in need of our help, I refuse to be deterred from it. And I will not let election year politics and gamesmanship stand in the way of continued progress.
What progress?
Really? So many Americans are in need of Eric Holder's help.
And what is he striving to advance? I mean, if he's got an advancement program out there, I don't see it.
Oh no, I don't. I do not see how Eric Holder has helped me in any way as an American citizen. I mean, was it when he filed suit against Arizona because the administration is more interested in protecting illegal votes than he is in enforcing our existing immigration laws? I mean, was he helping us when he filed suit against our great state of Texas for having the nerve to expect our voters to identify themselves at the polls?
Yeah.
Was he helping us when he filed an injunction against the state of Florida for having the nerve to purge their own voter rolls of dead and imaginary people? That did not help us get represented. Eric Holder needs to resign. But I digress again. He said, today's vote may make for good political theater in the minds of some, but it is, at base, both a crass effort and a grave disservice to the American people. They expect and they deserve far more. Hell yeah, we deserve far more. We deserve a Department of Justice, not a travesty of injustice. We deserve proper representation. We deserve protection at our own polling places. We deserve a Department of Justice that will enforce our laws and not pick and choose what they'll enforce based on nothing but political expedience. I can't believe that guy had the nerve to accuse anybody else of voting just based on political expedience. Oh, my goodness. Now, he says, as a result of the action taken today by the House, an unnecessary court conflict will ensue. Oh, man, this one royally pissed me off. Do you know why an unnecessary court conflict will ensue? It's not because of the action taken by the House. Oh, no. That isn't why we'll have an unnecessary court conflict. We'll have an unnecessary court conflict because this lying, worthless bastard won't produce wiretap records that will prove his and Obama's involvement in this political game they've been playing with our lives. Now, if he wanted to save us from an unnecessary court conflict, then the liar would own up and produce the records he's been untransparently hiding for more than a year now. He can end this today with transparency. He can put the whole mess to rest right now, but he won't. He'd rather cost you an unnecessary court conflict. He's stalling.
And it's going to cost us because if you think about it, at the end of the day, he knows he's scot-free because his justices have already said that they're not going to prosecute him. They're not going to pick up the case. Now, one of them backed off of that claim, but he said he's not going out of his way to prosecute Eric Holder. So now we know the Department of Justice won't take up the contempt charge. So they're going to have to take him to court civilly. And all that can happen there is that the judge can bang a gavel and says, well, yeah, you have to, produce these documents. But he doesn't have to do that because what can they do to him civilly? Nothing.
Well, and, our president also has already violated a court order in his oil moratoriums back in 2009 and 2010. It wouldn't be the first time someone in this administration just simply violated a court order. I want to know why the president doesn't go to jail for that one. He must be above the law, even though, boy, back when Nixon was president, everybody thought that was a heinous crime to think you're, as president, above the law. Boy, how have we changed in this country?
Oh, yeah. It's kind of funny you say that because, I'm sure you've probably run into a lot of things in your chat rooms and forums that you go out on, too. We talk about, people debating with us and different stuff. And of course, they're just lighting up right now talking about the health care and Eric Holder on the contempt thing. And I just said to him, I said, I started this whole new thread for him. And I said, okay, guys, it's election time, and we're coming down to the wire. Obama's running for re-election. You know everything he's done. You know his record. You're defending him staunchly. What if he was a Republican? You want to talk about a thread that went dead. Hardly anybody would respond. And I've got some guys I'm pretty friendly with. I have this one guy down in Hawaii I'm pretty friendly with. I mean, he is as far left as it goes. And I called him up. And I said, hey, man, I said, you're one of the people I always count on stuff like this, and you didn't respond. He's like, I ain't touching that one with a 10-foot pole.
And
I said, so you're admitting if he was a Republican, you wouldn't vote for him. And he just completely deflected the question. He wouldn't answer it. And then in some other forums and chat rooms, I saw some of the other guys who were out there defending. I'm like, hey, why aren't you guys answering this thread? I'll put it to you here. And, of course, I got all kinds of deflections. Nobody would answer it.
Oh, but I'll bet you got accused of some things and called some names, didn't you?
Actually, no.
No?
I didn't. No. I mean, the conservatives came out, and they were pretty funny with some of the things that they wrote into it. But none of the liberals, none of the far-left Democrats that I know from these that are consistently out there and write other articles and stuff, none of them made a comment. And normally I'll put stuff out there, and they'll attack me, obviously. And like you said, they'll call you names and try and take you apart. And then when you throw the facts at them, they can't. But I just totally blew them out of the water. I said, well, we're coming down to it, guys. Now, what would you say if he was a Republican?
Oh,
would you vote for him or not?
They would have been burning him in effigy, and we'd have pictures of him with the Hitler face and all that, the mustache and all that stuff going on. Yep.
I mean, all Alberto Gonzalez did was fire 7 people. And look what they did to that poor guy.
Oh,
I mean, he did nothing.
They got so worked up into a frenzy about those attorneys, too.
Yeah. I mean, and it's nothing compared to what Holder's done, and Holder's still there. And they defend him.
Oh, they don't. They let him get away with it. I think that the press makes me so angry just watching them let them get away with just dismissing things, and they just are like, oh, okay, well, we're not supposed to care. They're spoon-fed. Oh, yes. Well, we're almost through. This is one last thing he had to say. He said, my efforts to resolve this matter short of such a court battle, were rebuffed by Congressman Issa and his supporters. It's clear they were not interested in bringing an end to this dispute or obtaining the information they say they wanted. Ultimately, their goal was the vote that, with the help of special interests, they now have engineered. They engineered this whole thing. It shouldn't even be a question. We shouldn't be paying attention to this. Which special interests do you think Eric Holder is accusing his contempt charge on? I guarantee it's the NRA, but I don't know what other special interests there would be that he would be accusing this whole thing on. It's the people is what it is, and it's the whistleblowers, and it's Brian Terry's family. It's people who actually care about human life and are absolutely appalled that this country, that this Department of Justice, that our own ATF would even take part in such a ridiculous scam. The NRA is currently fighting Eric Holder's newly imposed regulations on the legal arms dealers in 3 different court cases. I mean, and then Brian Terry's parents, of course, are so annoyingly insisting that Eric Holder answers for their son's death. Those unreasonable people seem to want justice. And too bad Mr. and Mrs. Terry don't want a record mortgage settlement from a bank. That kind of justice Mr. Holder could have helped them with. But when it comes to holding our leaders accountable for the debts that their policies have wrought, hey, man, you're just going to have to suck that one up, Mr. and Mrs. Terry, Mr. and Mrs. Zapata. No one cares about justice for your dead sons. The important thing is that Eric Holder challenges voting changes and redistricting maps. Boy, if that isn't political expedience, I don't know what is. But, he says he's about real justice. And to this disgusting excuse for a human being, Eric Holder, it's politically expedient, apparently, to hold people accountable for arming murderers, but it's justice to challenge political districting maps. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your Attorney General, and I certainly hope you do something to change that. Of course, we've got the executive privilege being called now and saying that, oh, he doesn't have to produce these wiretaps and these things that I suspect will absolutely prove not only Holder's knowledge and planning involved in this, but Obama's. And the executive privilege, in a way, proves that too. I mean, obviously, the only way you can claim executive privilege is if it involves the White House. So now I guess the things they're still trying to get from Eric Holder involve the White House. And by claiming executive privilege, Obama pretty much admitted that. And then when the vote occurred in the House, a bunch of Democrats walked out on the vote, because they don't believe in transparency or accountability. They don't even believe in doing their job, which is to vote yay or nay. They walked out because it was politically expedient. But 17 Democrats stayed and voted to hold Eric Holder in contempt of Congress. What's interesting about that, and this is where the media, just unbelievable, these people, MSNBC host Melissa Harris Perry suggested in an interview with Emanuel Cleaver, who's a representative, that the Democratic Party should dump blue dog Democrats in favor of a more easily corralled group. Because we all know Democrats can't think for themselves or vote with their constituents. No, Democrats are apparently just a mob of sheep that need Nancy Pelosi to lead them towards political expedience.
Yeah, they can't vote on anything until somebody tells them how to do it.
Oh, my goodness. Well, and when they do, this chick from MSNBC wants them to oust them from the party. We don't need those blue dog Democrats.
Yeah, forbid they did the right thing, right? Well, that's what happens, if you're a Democrat and you do the right thing, they throw you out of the party or to make your life miserable, or like they did to the governor up in Wisconsin, they'll put a recall on you if you do the right thing.
Yeah, that was such a joke. Oh, man. They got somebody who did something absolutely right, who solved problems in the most painless way possible, and they tried to recall him. I'm so glad that failed, too. And I'll tell you what, when it's up to the voters, we tend to do what's right, and that's one of the reasons that they have to subvert us, is because they can't get garbage passed by us through representative government. It's why they go to the courts to get things done and to fight certain things. It's because they can't get it done. They can't get it past the voters. They have to rely on activist judges to make unconstitutional rulings. It's outrageous. So what happens now? As far as Eric Holder's contempt, we're not really sure. The local D.C. U.S. Attorney, Ronald Macon, is supposed to pick up the charges. And the question is, will he, or will his boss, Eric Chicago thug Holder, just tell him to sweep it under the rug now that Obama claimed executive privilege? But it doesn't end there. I mean, Congress does have a couple of other options. They could move to appoint a special prosecutor, or they could seek to enforce their subpoena through an action in civil contempt. And that's a measure that the House also approved Thursday. So they went ahead and approved not only the contempt of Congress, but a way around the Justice Department to get anything done, and which obviously I guess they figured, like Eric Holder's Justice Department is going to do anything about it. And that, to do the civil contempt, that would leave it up to a court to determine whether the invocation of executive privilege is valid or not. I mean, really, the only way to avoid a court battle at this point is for Eric Holder to comply with the investigation and quit stonewalling. One notable, and I don't know who keeps voting for this woman, Sheila Jackson Lee suggested, of course, that the contempt charges against Eric Holder are racist. And she's just like Al Sharpton. She has just as little credibility as Al Sharpton. And I am so often embarrassed by the ridiculous things that Sheila Jackson Lee says as a member of the House of Representatives here in Texas. I don't know who keeps voting for her in her district there, and she's in the Houston area. But I am begging you, please stop it. She's a blight. She is a joke. The woman is an idiot, and she makes Texas look stupid repeatedly. Please, please, please stop voting for morons like Sheila Jackson Lee. I don't know how this woman gets in. I don't know who votes for her. She's one of the most inarticulate people out there. She's almost as bad as that guy who thought Guam was going to tip over. But here's the kicker. Now, if we don't do something about this crooked, corrupt bastard, then nobody is going to. We have to cry out. We have to demand his resignation. Now, yesterday, about 50 American students did just that. They held a Fire Eric Holder protest in front of the White House on July 2nd, and the Secret Service shut them down. Now, it was supposedly because of a suspicious package that was discovered at the scene. Now, I haven't seen any follow-up articles that clarified what the package was or even if it did indeed exist, but it doesn't matter. I mean, they got rid of them with an unproven claim. Oh, we got a suspicious package, shut it down. Now, as far as I'm concerned, they just told us to shut the hell up. And I certainly hope that we aren't going to let this crooked bastard get away with that.
Definitely not.
It's got to be us. And see, that's just it. The media, during the Watergate years, the media is the one who made the issue out of it. They're the ones who harped all over it. And they kept working it. They actually worked the people up into a frenzy about it because, then we had the American people going, hey, yeah, no president is above the law.
Yeah, at least nobody died in that one.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Jeez,
but that one was a much bigger deal to the media.
Yeah, I know.
Just like you said, it involved Republicans.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's like a big deal about a Watergate for a guy who does a little bit of break-in and a little bit of recording of tapes. And let's forget about the ones killing our agents and all those hundreds of innocent Mexican people. Let's just forget about that one.
Oh, yeah. No, that doesn't matter. Move along.
Yeah, move along, please.
Yeah.
And we're walking. We're walking.
And then, we don't have much time. I love railing against Eric Holder. The other thing that we were going to talk about is the Obama tax ruling.
And I got something for you on that. And I heard it over the weekend. I don't know where I got this first, and I had a feeling you were going to go the route on the ObamaCare ruling. Mm-hmm. But I do know that Ms. B has it on the website because I saw her post it out on Facebook during the week. I think actually today or yesterday. So this is about a minute long.
Let me tell you. How it will be. There's one for you. 19 for me. I am the tax man. Tax man. Tax. I am the tax man. Tax man. Tax man. Should 5% appear too small? Be happy I don't tax them all. I am the tax man. Tax man. Tax. I am the tax man. Tax man. Tax man.
Yeah, I won't play the whole thing, but you got the gist of it. Because I know you're unsure on time, but yeah, I saw that over the weekend. It was hysterical. And for those of you who, you got to go and see the video that goes with the song. And again, it's on the All Fired Up Radio's site that Ms. B's got out there. It is hysterical.
I'll have to see the video.
Yeah, I'm the tax man.
Oh, he hates that too. They're scrambling to get away from that tax word.
Oh, are they not? It is a riot. And you know what? I think at this point, why can't somebody sit back and say, you know what? If you guys are that insistent that it's not a tax, well, then Obamacare has to fail because, according to Roberts, it's only good if it's a tax. It fails under everything else. Exactly.
But, and see, we're the ones who have to hold their feet to the fire. If anything is found unconstitutional, it's really up to the people to have an outcry, to make an issue of it, to do something about it. We cannot leave it up to a bureaucracy of nameless, faceless, unaccountable people. to guarantee our Constitution. We can't just sit back and watch. We have to take an active role. And the only way to do that is put on political pressure.
Absolutely.
Which, you know, the big thing about beating Obamacare now is it's going to be a matter of beating Obama in November and taking over the Senate for Republicans. Now, no matter how we slice the Obama tax ruling, it was definitely a loss for the opponents of Obamacare. It wasn't struck down in the ruling. It's still being implemented on a technicality that it's a tax. And as a tax, the initial arguments the White House made to try to get this case dismissed now apply. Remember when the Supreme Court heard this case back in March, Obama's lawyers tried to get the case dismissed on the grounds that it's a tax, and under the Anti-Injunction Act, you can't file suit for a refund from an unconstitutional tax until after you've already paid the unconstitutional tax. I mean, it makes sense. You can't get a refund until you've already paid something. Now, of course, these taxes don't go into effect for a couple of years yet. So by the time we're paying the tax to be able to challenge it, Obamacare will have already been implemented. And Obama and his Democrats were no dummies. They don't believe in being held responsible for their own actions or their own policies. We've seen that time and time again. So, you know, they passed a bill that we won't see the detrimental effects of until after you've already voted in November. They passed a bill in 2010 that they made damn sure wouldn't go into effect until after Obama's re-election. And I'll tell you what,
there are a good number of pieces that already are in effect that are taxing us, and
well, the
not everybody
tax
every day.
is already in place. And I know they're trying to start the contraception care. They're starting the pre-existing conditions early, and they're basically throwing us some bones. But if you think that Obamacare is going to stop at contraception care and pre-existing conditions, keep in mind it did not take 2,000 pages to set up those simple standards. There is so much more to this bill. We are looking at a large bureaucracy.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize all the regulations that are out there, and they don't understand because they just see their insurance going up and not understanding why. That they don't realize their insurance in the past has been going up anywhere between 1% and 3% per year, which is, it's pretty much normal for all prices on everything. Mm-hmm. But what's happening now is since Obamacare has gone in, it's going up about 9% to 10% a year because these guys will have to cover all these regulations. And now there's a whole bunch going to hit in January, which, like you said, is after the election. That, I mean, premiums, I think it was Kaiser. I think Kaiser says it's going to go up between 10 and 15%. They're not sure. That's a big hit.
Mine went up 30% the first year that after it was passed in 2011, last year. I couldn't believe it. Big jump.
And if you have a house and you sell your home and you make $200,000 or more on the sale of that home, starting January that just passed, you're paying a 3.8% sales tax on your house.
On top of
I had a guy who tried to tell me, no, that's the tax you're going to pay on the house, and it takes away the capital gains tax. And I'm like, no, dude, you're still going to pay the existing capital gains tax as it is set up under the law. Mm-hmm. This 3.8% is in addition to that, and that money's going to go into Medicare, and that's how it's set up to help offset the costs of what they're expecting to come along in Medicare, which, of course, is a drop in the bucket. It's not going to do nothing because with all these millions of people that are going to hit Medicaid and Medicare because they're going to be opting out of their system or the businesses are going to opt them out, it's going to be a disaster.
Another thing they don't really want to address, I think, is that we're going to lose a lot of people who have insurance right now will lose their insurance. Because, for one thing, a lot of businesses are already struggling. Now, when our small business started to struggle in 2008 and 2009, we ended up, that's the first thing we cut was health insurance. It was a family business. We basically were killing ourselves with that one, but it was a choice we had to make. Now, the thing is now a business can make a choice of paying for a health insurance policy, or half of one, because a lot of companies will only pay half, and then you pay the other half. And
right.
the thing is, it's way cheaper for them to pay a penalty and tell you to go get on the exchange. And then you may get, $4,000. It's based on your income and how many percentage over poverty level you are that you get. But it's not going to cover your policy. So if your company cuts you but still keeps you as an employee and they just pay the penalty, you still won't necessarily be covered. You may just get taxed and then not have insurance.
Right, because if you go out and pay for your own policy, it's going to cost a ton of money. And if you just pay that tax, I mean, that's kind of a joke too. So if you go and pay for your own policy, you're going to get this $4,000 break. And people don't realize, no, you don't get $4,000 in your pocket. What you get is to take $4,000 off of your gross income, which only nets you approximately $40. So, yeah, you're going to get a $4,000 credit, but in reality, you're only going to see $40 come off of your taxes. So what you're getting is a $40 break on your insurance, which doesn't even pay for 3 or 4 days of a policy.
There are so many things to look at for Obamacare. There really are. And, I mean, as far as this whole the decision goes, I mean, it's questionable. It's challengeable too, because none of the court agreed with each other on anything for a majority to not be questioned and not be challenged. And a lot of people are saying that John Roberts is a genius, that he's playing chess here. And we are kind of seeing that chess game play out, I think. I mean, the Obama administration has been scrambling to control the dialogue about the Obama tax ever since the ruling was released Thursday. Now, I have to give a Facebook friend of mine some credit here. Since I posted the first articles of the ruling, a guy named Bill Rust has been stressing the word Obama tax over Obamacare. And he's totally right. We should all be hammering this as the Obama tax. If this legislation is going to stand, it must be on the technicality that it's a tax, not a fine, not a penalty, but a tax. Otherwise, the legislation is unconstitutional. Based on Roberts' opinion, it doesn't stand on the Commerce Clause or the Necessary and Proper Clause. The only grounds Roberts gave it to stand as a tax. And this is why people are saying that Roberts is a genius. And like I said, there's a lot of people saying he's a traitor too, but what we've already seen play out just since Thursday may prove this ruling to be a political gold mine for Republicans. I've read a couple of different things about repealing taxes that are politically helpful to Republicans, and one of them is that a congressional vote to repeal a tax only takes a simple majority to repeal. So they only need 50 votes in the Senate and half or just over half in the House. Now, I read another analyst who said that under congressional rules, Democrats can't filibuster the repeal vote if it's a tax. Now, I don't know what rules they fall under or if they're even correct in their analysis. There's a lot of conflicting information out there. But if they are right, that would make an all-out appeal much easier politically to accomplish. But even if they're not, this ruling hurts Obama more than it helps him. He has been lying to us for a couple of years now. He's been insisting that this is not a tax. Now, in September of 2009, he actually made fun of George Stephanopoulos because he was arguing with him and telling him, no, it's not a tax. And Stephanopoulos said, well, I looked it up in the dictionary and by the definition. And Obama, told him that's proof that he was reaching, that you had to look it up in the dictionary. And all I have to say is words matter. They just keep repeating the same things over and over and denying the truth over and over and over. Oh, it's not a tax, it's a fine. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they want to label it. It has a legal definition now, and it's a tax. And I think we need to hammer on that fact that it's a tax. And we need to hold Obama's feet to the fire for the fact that he promised not to raise our taxes, especially in the middle class. But who is this going to hurt more than anybody is going to be those people who are just over that percentage who can't afford to buy insurance or who end up losing their insurance through their employer, because that's the way this legislation is designed. I think we are out of time, aren't we?
No, you got plenty of time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you got another 30 minutes.
Another 30 minutes?
Yeah, if you want it.
Oh, I didn't know. Okay, well, I guess we can do some clips then. I thought we were out of time.
No, we got time. I was going to try to sneak in there and tell you that you got that one clip for Obama insisting it's not a tax. If you want me to play that one for you.
Yeah. Let's play Obama telling us. This is back in 2009. This is his argument with George Stephanopoulos.
You were against the individual mandate during the campaign. Under this mandate, the government is forcing people to spend money, fining you if you don't. How is that not a tax?
Well, hold on a second, George. Here's what's happening. You and I are both paying $900 on average, our families, in higher premiums because of uncompensated care. Now, what I've said is that if you can't afford health insurance, you certainly shouldn't be punished for that. That's just piling on. If, on the other hand, we're given tax credits, we've set up an exchange, you are now part of a big pool, we've driven down the costs, we've done everything we can, and you actually can afford health insurance, but you just decided, you know what, I want to take my chances. And then you get hit by a bus, and you and I have to pay for the emergency room care.
That may be, but it's still a tax increase.
That's not true, George. For us to say that you've got to take a responsibility to get health insurance is absolutely not a tax increase. What it's saying is that we're not going to have other people carrying your burdens for you, any more than the fact that right now everybody in America just about has to get auto insurance. Nobody considers that a tax increase. People say to themselves, that is a fair way to make sure that if you hit my car, that I'm not covering all the costs.
But it may be fair, it may be good public policy.
No, but George, you can't just make up that language and decide that that's called a tax increase. If I say that right now your premiums are going to be going up by 5 or 8 or 10% next year, and you say, well, that's not a tax increase. But on the other hand, if I say that I don't want to have to pay for you not carrying coverage even after I give you tax credits that make it affordable, then
I don't think I'm making it up. Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Tax, a charge usually of money imposed by authority on persons or property for public purposes.
George, the fact that you looked up Merriam's dictionary, the definition of tax increase, indicates to me that you're stretching a little bit right now. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gone to the dictionary to check on the definition.
Well, no.
I mean, what you're saying is...
I wanted to check for myself, but your critics say it is a tax increase.
My critics say everything's a tax increase. My critics say that I'm taking over every sector of the economy. You know that. Look, we can have a legitimate debate about whether or not we're going to have an individual mandate or not. But
you reject it as a tax increase.
I absolutely reject that notion.
I don't think Obama could have pissed me off more at the time than he did by claiming Stephanopoulos was reaching to look in the dictionary.
Really?
Oh, my gosh, this is the problem with stinking lawyers. They think they define words. The dictionary doesn't. What?
Remember Clinton? Well, it depends on what the definition of is. Is,
yes, exactly. Exactly. There you go, a lawyer for you. The dictionary doesn't matter. You know, words don't matter to these people. They redefine words on a case-by-case basis, and they call it a legal definition. And common sense reality doesn't matter in their legal minds. I mean, lawyers remind me of philosophers. If they twist the words enough, they'll claim black is white and white is black, and then make fun of you for not accepting their nonsense rationalization of it. I mean, but now it's even worse. We have a Supreme Court ruling that only allows the law to exist on the grounds that it's a tax. And these guys are still trying to convince us it isn't. They think they can hand you a duck and tell you it's a rabbit, and you won't know the difference. Even though it quacks and it waddles and it lays eggs, they'll just keep repeating the lie at you that it isn't a duck over and over and over. They'll convince you, they'll convince the media that to report accurately and fairly, they must call this a duck. Or they must call this duck a rabbit is what they're trying to convince us. So, it should be interesting over the next few weeks to see which networks and which pundits are spoon-fed enough to accept the rabbit as a duck. I mean, who's going to accept Obama's lame excuses for breaking his promise and raising taxes on the middle class? Which one of our media outlets are going to buy it and start using his new language? It's like we don't call them terrorists. They're, these are man-caused disasters. They're not terrorist actions, and we change our language so that we can change the way we legislate.
Yeah, these aren't taxes. This isn't taxes. These are unexpected increases.
Yeah. It's just a penalty or a fine. Doesn't matter that it's taking money out of your pocket, and it's the government doing it.
Yep.
Outrageous. So, they've been trying to convince us. And I guess the White House Chief of Staff, Jack Lew, is the new talking head for the administration. I guess he's taken over for Debbie what's-her-name Schultz, which I'm kind of glad. She annoyed me, but he's not any better.
Yeah, he's not any better. Boy, they do need a better spokesperson, don't they?
Yeah, she was not. Just was not good. Okay, so we do have a clip. This is him refusing to accept the word tax.
If you are a family making less than $250,000 a year, you will not see your taxes go up.
You will not see one dime's worth of tax increase. Any form of tax increase.
Question: didn't the president break that promise?
Well, Chris, if you go back and you look at the laws that have been enacted since the president's taken office, we have cut taxes for those families. We have reduced their taxes.
But according to the Supreme Court, this is going to raise taxes for those families.
That's not what the Supreme Court said. What the Supreme Court said was this was constitutional. They said it didn't matter what Congress called it. It is a penalty for the 1%.
No, wait a minute, sir.
It is a penalty for the 1% who choose not to buy insurance.
Mr. Lew, they call it a tax.
No, actually, technically what they said is the Congress has many powers. There's a Commerce Clause, there's taxing powers, and it was constitutional.
No,
that's what they said.
No,
they said it doesn't matter what you call it.
I can't let you go there. It specifically said that it is not constitutional under the Commerce Clause. They said it is constitutional under the tax. And as to the question about raising taxes for the middle class, if I may, sir, let's just look at the record. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office estimates that in 2016, 4 million Americans will pay the mandate penalty or tax. 75% of those people will make less than $120,000 a year. And the CBO says between 2012 and 2021, those folks will pay $27 billion in additional taxes. So,
Chris,
if I may just finish my question, and then I promise I'll let you talk. The middle class is taking quite a hit by what the Supreme Court said is a tax.
I think if you look at all of the laws enacted in the last 3.5 years, you would see that those families have a tax cut. That all the independent analysts, whether it's the Congressional Budget Office or others, would validate that there has been a tax cut.
I'm not arguing that. All I'm saying is that this is a tax increase on the middle class of $27 billion over the next 10 years.
No, what this is a law that says if you can afford insurance and you choose not to buy it, and you choose to have your health costs be a burden to others, you'll pay a penalty so that you'll pay your fair share. That's what this law says. For the 99% of the people who buy insurance or who get it through the tax cuts that are in this act, they're not going to be affected. You keep your insurance, you don't pay any kind of penalty. For the very few people who decide to be free riders and not have insurance but still have their costs go into the system so the rest of us pay it, there's a penalty. It is not a burden on the middle class.
Well, again, the nonpartisan CBO says 4 million Americans will be paying that tax by 2016. And let's look at why Chief Justice Roberts called it a tax. It will be collected and enforced by the Internal Revenue Service. What you pay is calculated as a percentage of your income. And here's what the president's lawyer, the Solicitor General Donald Verrilli, told the court in defending the mandate.
Not only is it fair to read this as an exercise of the tax power, but this court has got an obligation to construe it as an exercise of the tax power if it can be upheld on that basis.
Why? Mr. Lew, if it walks, looks, and quacks like a duck, It's a duck.
Well, Chris, it's been a long time since I've practiced law, but I know one of the things about our judicial system is that you can make arguments to the court on multiple grounds. That's what Don was doing. He was saying there are a lot of ways to look at this. It was set up, and it was not called a tax.
He is making, I think he made a fool of himself all over the Sunday talk shows with his doublespeak. He just flat out refuses to accept the legal label of the Obama tax mandate. He won't accept it as being a tax.
And I'd have called him out on that. I want him to sit there and show us how the middle class has gotten a tax break under the Obama administration.
I want to say when they first got into office, and it was minimal, and it came down to just a little bit, like $20 more in a pay period.
Well, that was the Social Security payroll tax that's still going on now. But I mean, his first act in office was he put the sin tax on gasoline because he wanted extra money for the green energy fund. He put the sin tax on alcohol beverage for the same reason. And he's just loaded with tax increases and regulations. I mean, he put the regulations on coal, which has in turn cost everybody extra money on their electric bills now.
That one will get so much worse. We haven't really seen the effects of a lot of these regulations enacted yet.
Well, the big thing is, out of all those coal plants that were expected to shut down because of this regulation over the next couple of years, 18% of them have already shut down, and they didn't expect to get the heat that we're getting right now. And so this is the grid is being stressed big time. And if this gets into the heat of summer even more, you can expect a lot of brownouts and lots of rolling brownouts, lots of crashes in the infrastructure. And it's all going to come back to because they took these plants off. And in order to compensate, they're going to have to buy electricity from Canada or wherever to ship it in. And it's going to cost them a fortune. And they're going to pass all those on us.
Less energy independent. Isn't that nice? And we'll be paying like 5 to 8 times the electric bills that we are now once they get all the coal plants offline that they want to, that are scheduled to go.
Yeah. I mean, there was the taxes that they put on the pharmaceutical companies, and those taxes, of course, were passed along through rate increases or higher rates or higher prices for the drugs themselves, and other regulations and Cadillac plans that they put on the insurance companies, and they raised their prices. So, we have seen across the board all kinds of things that they've been doing, regulations that have gone on and causing higher food prices. I mean, it's not a direct tax to us, but it's their stuff that's costing us money. And they are just obliterating the middle class that they claim they're trying to help. And not to mention the small class bill, the small business tax that went through on the bill last Friday that everybody said wasn't there. Well, now they found out it's there. And so there's just Obama's sitting there telling everybody he's for helping the small business, but he just gave us a tax increase.
Yep.
So, and it was sitting right there in the college bill.
Small business is barely holding on right now. It's not just one industry. It's just being in the position of not having a lot of capital on hand and not having a lot of borrowing power to get through the hard parts. And we've been going through 3 years of this now.
And then there's the small businesses that are large enough to have the 50 employees are now going to be dealing with this mandate that's going to be destroying their business, what they're going to do one way or the other. And what about those companies that are sitting, say, between 50 employees and I would say 75 and 80 employees? Those guys are big enough that they're going to get hit and they're going to hurt, but they're not too big to absorb it, that they might actually sit back and say, you know what, in order to be able to do what the president wants us to do, it's going to cost us too much. So either we need to opt out, and if we can't opt out, then the other thing we need to do is let all these employees go and restructure our company and stay under the 50 employees. And I promise you there's going to be a lot of companies that are going to go that route. And so now you're going to only add to the unemployment ranks that we already have.
And I've seen a lot of reports over the last 2 years since this passed about business looking at their options. And one of the things that one of the reasons people aren't hiring is because of uncertainty, because they don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years as this is implemented, and they're afraid. So even if they are making profits and doing okay right now, they aren't hiring because they're scared out of their minds.
And they're scared because there's nobody that they can talk to about this, because, as Ms. Pelosi says, got to pass it to find out what's in it. And that's what's happening. Each year comes along, there's things that have to, taxes you got to go. I'm going to get hit with a tax. I think it's either next month or the month after. There's the tax now on everybody who has home equipment. Now, I have a BPAP machine. I have an oxygen machine. I have a nebulizer. So now I'm going to have to pay a tax on top of my stuff for those machines.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. You already spend enough money getting those things together. I mean, just having to maintain those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, my BPAP machine, I had, it's kind of a funny story, but anyway, I cut, long and the short is the hose got cut with the bed. And so I just taped it up to get me by for a couple of nights, and I ordered a new hose. Now you're talking a stupid little rubber hose that's super thin plastic. It looks like one of those hoses that you use on the above ground pools for your filter going into your pool, only it's much smaller looking. And it's about 4 feet long. $65.
Wow.
It couldn't have cost them $2 or $3 for whoever manufactured it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
well, and that brings us to the real problems in our healthcare system that nothing was dealt with from this Obamacare problem. I talked to he's an independent insurance agent. He's actually a high school friend, and he's not selling medical and health insurance. He sells other kinds of insurance, but he keeps an eye on the markets and has a lot of friends who do sell insurance. He said at this point they have cut the commissions that independent agents make from healthcare insurance so low that a lot of independent agents have just dropped health insurance altogether. They won't even attempt. It's not worth their time to even serve as anybody's agent for it. But the one thing he said, and he's absolutely right, Cleve said that the only way we're going to fix what's wrong with our health care industry right now is if we change the mandate that says hospitals and doctors cannot deny care. That we have to let them do that when people can't afford to pay. Now, I'm not uncharitable. I believe there is a very good reason to have low-cost clinics. I mean, and I don't see any reason why the government can't sponsor such things. We have health departments in every county. You can get a lot of care at in those programs already. And I'm not saying that solves everything, but that does help a lot with all the people who show up to the emergency room because they can't go to a regular doctor without insurance. But the truth is that as long as we have people showing up to emergency rooms and getting care, whether they can pay or not, we're bankrupting our hospitals. We're bankrupting our doctors. They're just losing money. And they can't survive if they can't afford to pay their own bills and their own staff.
Yeah, and I think part of that is I mean, it's just the whole industry is ridiculously expensive. I mean, you know. Oh,
well, we, add the pharmaceuticals to it, add the costs of frivolous lawsuits, and not all of them are frivolous, and a lot of them, that is our lawsuits are a very good control to keep private industry from hurting people. But at the same time, it's gotten ridiculous. I mean, I know somebody who joined she went and got a boob job, and it was right when it was all the stuff about silicone breast implants leaking had already been in the news for a couple of months. And she ran out and got a boob job and then immediately turned around and joined the class action suit. Yeah, I mean, that's what made me, that one just took, and what's funny is, yeah, big shock. Within a couple of months even, her silicone implants started leaking, and she had to go get them replaced, which, of course, was at free of charge because of the class action suit. This is ridiculous. You know, it was like fen-phen. When people start having, what is it called, heart attacks, and, you know, people with heart murmurs and having to have heart valves replaced because they took a diet drug. Now, okay, I mean, I guess you can sue the FDA for putting it on the market, but we have to have some personal responsibility in the things that we put in our bodies. And if you're going to start doing something that a doctor didn't even prescribe to you, I just don't see why. Look, I had a friend who took fen-phen, and she ended up getting a heart valve replaced, and they won a major suit, and she got over $1 million. And the reason they gave her so much money is in case she has complications in the future. But it's not like she saved that money for complications in the future. They went out and bought a yacht. They went out and bought some really nice stuff, a new house, and they were living very high on the hog. And it didn't take long to run out of that money. Now, what's sad about it is if she has problems now, health problems, she's not going to use that money to get them fixed. That money's gone. She's going to go to the emergency room, and we're going to pay for it.
Yeah, but it's the cost of the stuff is what kills you. I mean, you know, they charge these, you know, the people who supply the hospitals charge these ridiculous prices for the materials, and then of course the hospital charges these ridiculous prices to the people, and you know.
Well, I'm pretty sure the hospitals are just making up for losses in other areas. Because when you look at their books, hospitals are not making record profits. Like, you know, they're not like the oil companies where you go, they shouldn't get subsidies. They are literally spending a lot of money caring for the indigent and those who can't pay.
Yeah, but somewhat. I mean,
why is the insurance company getting away scot-free when, if you ask me, the insurance company has a lot to do with our increasing costs as well, and the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah, and they do. But, I mean, I know for me, being in that long-term care facility, I mean, it was a horrible place, and you did not get good care there.
Yeah.
And you know, I know, well, you know, and some of my stuff, I had to fight, you know, insurance companies just saying no to this and no to that, and it's like, oh, guys, you know, it's not a good thing if I don't get this. And, you know, I remember I was off my ventilator for a little bit, and I wasn't able to talk a whole lot, and the ER doctor, she came and visited me, and she told me that, you know, they were putting through certain stuff for me because they didn't know what to do with me, and they decided that they wanted to put a trach in my throat and put me on a ventilator. Oh. And because I wasn't super, you know, I was close to dying, but I wasn't going to die that minute. They ran everything through, and it got turned down. And she said, "The hell with it," and she did it anyway, because she said if they didn't do it, I was going to die. And of course, it got approved later on. But it's, you know, if they're going to go by at that moment, I mean, that's ridiculous. And same with therapy and therapy and everything.
Every insurance company I've ever dealt with turns down almost every initial request.
Yeah, you know, and some of these things.
It.
You know, and some of these things cost ridiculous amounts of money. And when I first started getting sick, and they were running these MRIs and stuff, I mean, they put this one contrast dye in me. The dye was $300.
Wow.
And you're talking about something that's it's just an injection needle. So you're talking a couple of millimeters of cc's or whatever it is that they do. Well, you know, we're talking less than probably less than a shot glass of liquid. It's incredible, the cost of everything.
Oh yeah,
you know, like I said,
that falls
the
under
cost
pharmaceutical.
of that hose. Yeah, I mean, the cost of the hoses and all the stuff that goes with it is just ridiculous.
Well, they can charge that much. Insurance is they're dealing with an insurance company. In fact, they'll overcharge the insurance company because the insurance company will cut down the bill as much as possible, and they'll be bickering back and forth over it, which, of course, also adds expense because then we're hiring administrators for doctors to deal with the insurance companies.
Yep, exactly.
I'll tell you what, there was one thing, I don't know if we have a clip for it, that, just frustrated me so badly about this Obamacare thing. We're starting to see the reexamination of the health care law. Of course, we're all starting to look at it now because now it's been through the court enough for us to see we may have to actually deal with it. So considering the fact that we really didn't have much of a debate over the 2,000-page bill when the Democrats were cramming it down our throats back in 2010, I think this is a good thing. I mean, it's really time to transparently address the issues, I would think anyway. And even Nancy Pelosi is urging Democrats to get behind the Obama tax and to make a case for it to the public, which I had to think, well, it's about stinking time Democrats actually tried to make a case to the voters for the legislation that they passed without even reading it. And, it's ironic that at the same time the president is trying to distance himself from the Obama tax for the election. Of course, we've got Jack Lew out there, and they rushed to pass this bill. They made backroom deals. They bought votes for it with taxpayer money, and they didn't even pass the thing by procedure. They used some shady and very unrepresentative technicality to pass the bill in which they had to suspend the rules to even get it accepted by their own majority party. The one that gets me, keeping all that in mind, is when Jack Lew, he's the White House Chief of Staff, the same guy we heard telling us how it's not a tax, he is now emphatically urging that the national debate over the health care law be brought to an end. And what he said, and he said it on Fox News Sunday, is when the Supreme Court rules we have a final answer, the law is constitutional, it stands. One thing the American people want is for the divisive debate on health care to stop. He said, I don't think the American people want to have this debate again. I don't think they want to be pulled back into decades of debate to get where we are. We need to move on and deal with the economy and jobs. I mean, okay, finally they want to deal with the economy and jobs. It's about freaking time. We're only 3.5 years into this 4-year term. But, now they want to move on. Really? That one made me mad. All I could think was, screw you. You fascist Democrats didn't want to have this debate when you passed the bill. According to Nancy Pelosi, they needed to hurry up and pass the garbage so we can read it away from all the controversy. So now Nancy Despicable Pelosi wants to make the case of her legislation to America. Now, after they've enacted it against the will of their constituents, now after the Supreme Court told them it doesn't stand under the Commerce Clause, I mean, now 2 years after cramming it down our throats, the White House doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Aw, too bad. I'm sorry. We're talking about it. We're not only talking about it, we are running against Obama on its appeal. And we should be. But I just was absolutely incensed at the idea that we're supposed to stop talking about it now. Oh, look, the Supreme Court ruled, now shut up. And what's funny is the Supreme Court ruling is questionable. There are a lot of questions about it. There's a lot of valid things to question about it and what it means, and it will be challenged. I mean, there was not a single one tenet of the opinions that everybody agreed on or that a majority agreed with everyone on. The 4 Democrats agreed with Justice Roberts on 3 or 4 points out of his opinion, and then they wrote their own opinion because they didn't agree with him on everything. The 4 conservatives agreed with Roberts on several points, especially about the Commerce Clause and the proper and necessary clause, but they didn't agree with him about everything. I mean, we literally had, it wasn't so much a 5-4 vote as a 4-1-4 vote. So we have some questions. It's not time to end the debate. It's not time to stop talking about it. It's time to talk about it, because we really do need to run on the repeal of this travesty of justice. You have been listening to Words Matter with Mary Weeks and George here on All Fired Up Radio. I'll be posting the notes from tonight's show, where you can see all links, videos, and transcripts we discussed at both www.allfiredupmedia.com and www.redwhitebluenews.com. Thank you for joining us this evening. We will be back next Tuesday night at 8. And until then, do not forget to call and email Eric Holder's office and demand that he resigns. Have a safe and happy 4th of July, and God bless America. Thanks.
Have a great Independence Day, everybody.
Words Matter with Mary Weeks is an All Fired Up Radio original broadcast. To listen to more Words Matter podcasts, go to www.allfiredupmedia.com.